Okay, thank you, Pnawn da chi. Good afternoon, croeso. Welcome to the last session here at the Business Support Stand, tent, whatever you want to call it. One little thing, if before leaving the building, if you can try and go to the Growth Clinic just on the corner, they are looking for people to join them. But our last session is entitled Trefi, Smart Towns Cymru, how smart technology is future-proofing Welsh high streets. Now, it is being recorded, the camera behind us here. It's going to be uploaded onto the higher platform. Any social media, please feel free to take any pictures. Use the hashtag Wales Tech Week. So the panel discussion is going to be chaired by the Smart Towns Wales Project Manager. This is Kiki Rees-Stavros from Blaenau Ffestiniog in North Wales. And then we'll have a panel discussion with our experts, and there'll be a chance for you to ask some questions later on. But for now, let's welcome Kiki, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. Thanks for the lovely introduction. I'm Kiki Rees-Stavros, Project Manager for Smart Towns Wales, and I work for a social enterprise called Mann. So for those of you who haven't heard of us, we're based in North West Wales, and we have 5 main project areas, so from business and technology to renewable energy, and everything we do feeds back into prosperous communities. So Smart Towns Wales, we're for the community. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the programme. So we've been running Smart Towns Wales on behalf of the Welsh Government since 2021. It's closely tied to the Transforming Towns agenda. So the idea of using data and technology to help regenerate high streets and to see how much these interventions are working and helping high streets. So this is through using footfall data, sensor data to make high streets more efficient, resilient and sustainable. We've done this through a number of pilot projects, through digital placemaking plans, workshops, webinars, and one-to-one support, which if you'd like to know more about, we're on stand L2, and we have a whole series of workshops coming up for you to learn more about that. So from 2021, we've gone from raising awareness of quite an unknown concept, really. I mean, everyone's heard of smart cities, but smart towns, a little bit less clear what that looks like. So we've gone from raising awareness to actually seeing quite a lot of implementation across Wales. And now what we're really focusing on is using that data to make those decisions. So I always say, data and technology doesn't make you a smart town. It's turning that data into actions, which is where the magic works. So we have case studies, we have Wi-Fi being deployed. We have businesses using this data to change their, to run more efficiently with their staffing, their stocking, to use it for business plans, for grant applications. We have Laura Wan infrastructure being rolled out, heavy investment from the Welsh Government there. We have councils deploying sensors for all kinds of reasons, from cleaner air to more efficient, better services, basically. We have community-run apps and platforms that encourage local spend, but also empower local communities. And we have digital screens, not just for advertising, but for actually redirecting footfall based on the data. So we've got a whole wealth of case studies that I'm not going to go on about. I'm going to pass on to the people who are really pushing this on the ground. So David, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in Wrexham? And I just realised I haven't used any of my slides, so yes, this is our amazing panel. Actually, sorry, should we introduce the panel first? Sorry, David.
My name is Dave Evans. I work for Wrexham County Borough Council. I've been there about 12 months now with the Smart Towns Development. Sorry. It's on one attention. So, my name is Dave Evans. I've been with Wrexham Council now for about 12 months. I'm employed as the Smart Towns Development Officer. So my job is really on 2 kind of roles, really, looking at digital connectivity and implementing sensors to gather data to learn about their town's behaviours.
My name is Paul Sandem. I'm one of the co-founders of Kodergarten. We've developed for the Smart Towns project a place analytics platform which helps people and businesses and communities make more sense of the town.
I'm Vicky Mann, CEO and founder of a company called Near Me Now, and we're the company behind Visitor Smart Towns. Visitor Smart Towns evolved from a Welsh Government project. They were calling for us to create better lives closer to home. And essentially what it is an ecosystem platform that allows local communities, high streets, towns to generate an ecosystem for their businesses to engage with their customers. So you'd all know that as an app. But it's an ecosystem of towns with the ability to communicate and to aggregate data so that it can be distributed to people for them to use.
Hi, I'm Owen. I'm from a consultancy called Owen Davies Consulting. In old money, I'm an urban planner and economic development consultant, but in modern language, I'm known as a placemaker. But in more recent years, been helping to pilot and pioneer in Wales what we now call digital placemaking, which I'm sure I'll get a lot of time to talk about later. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. David, should I pass on to you for Wrexham? Are you standing up?
So, I've been employed in Wrexham now for about 12 months. Again, my job was looking at digital connectivity and the deployment of sensors. So the first thing we kind of did in Wrexham was kind of set up some LoRaWAN infrastructure, some LoRaWAN gateways across the city. What these can do, about 7,000 sensors can report to one gateway. So we've got complete coverage now over Wrexham City. I've just pulled two use cases out to show you today. So the environment team wanted to know a little bit more about moisture levels. So in Wrexham, we've got some raised planters. We installed some LoRaWAN moisture sensors in the planters. And the feedback was absolutely phenomenal, really. So it's done two things. The street scene operatives in the council actually saw the benefits before. They used to come into work with a pickup truck with a huge tank of water, spend about 45 minutes filling a tank of water up, and then go around watering the plants. When they started seeing this data, so here's another example, when they saw the moisture levels, it actually said, I don't need to water you today. So it saved time, it saved water, they could be doing other jobs, and ultimately it creates a better environment for the plants to grow, which the visitors can enjoy when they come into the city centre. Another example, car parking. Now, car parking is quite an issue in most cities and towns across Wales. So we just got about 20 sensors at first. We put them into car parking spaces to understand how the car parks are kind of used. We had a mixture of disabled spaces and non-disabled spaces. And what the dashboard tells us is real time. So when it's highlighted red, you can actually see a car park space is occupied, and when it's green, it's not occupied. Now, from this part of the dashboard, you can see the dwell times that the cars are spent there. And this is great data for any local authority, really. So, you know, the amount of data to see you can have how much one car park space is used every single day. It could determine, have I got enough disabled spaces in my car park? Do I need less disabled spaces in my car park? Do I need to look at a park and ride scheme? Is it a short stay car park? Is it a long stay car park? How do I apply charges in the future for these car parking? And ultimately, these sensors can be linked to a car parking app. So the residents or visitors can actually see how many spaces there are in a car park at any given time, which makes it more attractive for people to come into town centres. Another sensor that we've got some traffic sensors in and around the town, or city as it is now. So how the sensor works, they're configured really to look at, they work off radar, so it can detect the lengths of vehicles. So it not just counts the vehicles coming into the city, but it can determine if it's a two-wheeler, a car, or a HGV. Again, it's useful for promoting active travel routes, etc., etc. And when we started deploying these sensors, the police actually came to me and said, we've got an issue around the high street in Wrexham. A lot of the residents are saying there's a lot of speeding cars. So we managed to reconfigure the sensor to look at speeds. Now, it's not enforceable. It's not like a radar that you can get a speeding ticket from, but it's quite useful data to give to the police to say, on every Friday, you've got an issue with speeding vehicles down there. Again, it promotes public safety. Digital screens. So one of my jobs within Wrexham was to look at navigation around the city. So again, posters, thing of the past. How can we share information, get it out to the public for events, have maps on there. So our first digital screen, which went outside in the library, was a bit of a success story here, really. The library asked me to display a slide on there for an event. It was a book reading club on a Saturday morning. It was on there for a week and a half, and they rang me up and said, Dave, can you take that slide down? I went, why would you want to do that for? And they said, we're at capacity. We've never been at capacity for 7 years. So we have to take it down. So it just shows you the power of a large digital screen of promoting events. Wrexham's vision, obviously, to increase the LoRaWAN capacity, more sensors, more data, and ultimately, grow the economy of the town centre. Share the data between the businesses. Look at how much footfall goes down the street. Is it worth you opening an extra hour? That'll help you with the scheduling. Looking at how events, when we plan events as a local authority, how do the events impact them businesses? So we can see the footfall from cafes, bars, restaurants, shops, and we get to know kind of what events work in the city and what works for the businesses. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. So exciting to see all this happening in Wrexham. We first met a year ago when you first started the job. Can you tell us a bit about how that journey started for Wrexham?
Yeah, so my background's retail. I was a store manager for a well-known supermarket company. And in the 90s, we were using sensors in stores to understand queues at checkouts. It then kind of evolved to a scheduling system, which told us how many bums on seats we needed at every 15-minute interval during the day. And from that, you kind of see how efficiencies it makes for the business, but ultimately what it gives the customer to improve the shopping trip. And, what we're doing in Wrexham now is exactly the same thing. It's making efficiencies for the local authority, but at the same time is improving the visitor attractive for Wrexham.
Yeah, thank you. And in terms of seeing that from both sides of things, how different is that trying to push forward the technology from the public sector point of view?
Sometimes it's quite difficult. When you present someone with sensors, you initially get pushback. What can it do for me? So I think ultimately anybody starting out on this journey needs to understand what are your issues within towns and villages across Wales. Find out, what the real issues are, and then look towards the technology. What could technology do to support it, rather than doing it the other way, just getting sensors and hoping someone will come on board. We're in a cost of living crisis as we speak. Councils and businesses haven't got money to spend, so you have to really prove the need for this technology to work.
I think you are proving that need at the moment, aren't you? And I know you're sharing the data through the dashboard with the businesses. We're going to hear now from Paul, who has a dashboard which allows people to have open access to all kinds of data about their towns. So, Paul, would you like to take over?
Hi. Right, I'll start off with a graph. bit of a data geek. This is something by a man called William Playfair. He had a problem in 1800 and he wanted to tell people about Scotland. And all he had was tables of data. And he invented the majority of the things we're going to show you, whether they're bar charts or pie charts like this. That's the man. Interestingly, he did several careers, 2 of which were blackmailing, and he was a convict, but that's probably beside the point. Over the last 3.5 years, we've developed a data analytics platform called Patron. Patron means pattern in Welsh. We take data from Wi-Fi access points, LoRaWAN sensors, and a little toy that I'm clutching here, all sorts of different things. At the moment, we're now across 28 locations in Northwest Wales, from large towns to beauty spots to beaches. We are, as of next week, rolling out across, we hope, up to 24 locations in Powys. So we're expanding. What we're going to do now is show you some data very quickly and the stories and how this can help create better understanding of a place. So I've picked 3 places that are quite similar. There's no point in comparing apples and pears. We'll show you that there is, but at the moment, so these are 3 tourist towns in Northwest Wales. And here's the data that we've got on those towns in terms of dwell time. And we're covering a period from the 1st of April this summer right through to the beginning of this month. And you can see across the 3 different places that there are distinct patterns of activity, particularly around Easter and dwell times, etc. So it's not just about telling people about their place, it's about putting their place in context with others and making this data open. We've got all sorts of other metrics as well about the place that you can see on the platform, but there's just an example of 3 places and that date range. We can now bring some different towns in and tell a little story. So as well as the 3 holiday towns, we've got other places that are less touristic. We've got the towns, but the one that's really interesting to us is the one in the bottom right. Have we got anyone here from Llangefni? I've never said that before, but I'm expecting at least one person to shout. Thank you. Yes. It's your fault, this. I don't know if you can see, but we've got these trends which mimic summer holidays, bank holidays, etc. Look what happened in Llangefni in June the 10th. Yeah, something happened. It must have been good. And it was is it called the festival or the carnival? Yeah. So that shows you the festival. Now, if you're going for grants and you want to be able to tell people, how did it do? There you go. But even better than that, we can start to tell stories about it. These are the qualitative data that we pick up from people who log into the Wi-Fi. And I think what I did was I took the date of that Saturday for the festival, and then I took the date of the following Saturday. And boy, did the boys and girls come out to play at the festival. 18 to 24, male, female, or female, male. And if we go down to the following, it's different. We start to see patterns and we begin to be able to explain what is actually happening in that place through the people who actually respond. We can also see changes in the age ranges, but more importantly as well, the visit reasons. Again, this is across multiple places because they all get asked the same questions. So we're trying to say here there is a quantitative element, how many devices do we see somewhere, the rate of change, and then the qualitative, why did people come? How old were they? What language do they prefer to be dealt with? Now we'll finally just show you 3 completely different places. An amazing place right in the middle of Snowdonia, the same place as a control Beddgelert and Llangefni again, just so you don't feel left out. Now, Bwthyn Ogwen is famous for many things, plants, wildlife, mountains, but also parking. And if we now look at the data for these different places, you can start to see the ranges of patterns. Llangefni, it's a market town on the far right. Weekly patterns, a consistent pattern of usage, and a fairly consistent level of the reasons for going there. There's only one reason to go to Bwthyn Ogwen, but you can also see the massive peaks that coincide with holidays and weather. And then back to a more touristic destination, and we've got the patterns that show things. But we've got important things in there, dwell times, etc. How can a community improve that dwell time, getting people to spend hopefully more? And finally, this. I've been clutching this. This is the final bit. We are using a piece of Welsh technology. It's called a raspberry shake. It was invented or deployed to measure earthquakes. We're using it to measure traffic. So here's the measurements, which unfortunately is a seismologist's graph. So we have got better graphs now, showing the actual vehicle traffic around the Eisteddfod site. And you can see from the blues in the middle, those were the days it rained. So it shows you the patterns. Now we've also got the data for another 5 locations, so we can feed back to Mented Morn about how that event with over 200,000 visitors actually impacted the towns using non-invasive vibrations in the ground. So yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Some ground shaking stuff there.
Oh.
Sorry. So I think we've spoken before, Paul, about obviously how towns use the data and things, but to play devil's advocate, how does having this data help? You know, when we talk about future-proofing towns.
Well, clearly some of the exercises we've done is that the system doesn't just show graphs. If you select a date range and a place, you can download that data. It's open data. So what they can do with that then, particularly from a business perspective, is they could download that data and then download their sales data from their EPOS system. What is the relationship between something that we don't need to know about, but they do, and see if there are any patterns. Why are they not doing twice as well on a day when there's twice as much footfall? So it's about bringing forth information that they perhaps weren't, that they didn't know about. So there's that, which is a much more private thing of taking data that's of interest and then looking at it. Other ways that they could do it is the bit that we're a bit obsessed about, which I'm sure you've picked up on, which is about communities sharing data with one another. If a community that they feel is similar has a longer dwell time, why? Why are people staying in that place longer than that other place? What can they do? What interventions can they make? And at least with this system, they're able to see that. They're able to compare themselves. Instead of being a parochial, what am I doing in my place? What am I doing in my place? It's about what are you doing in your place, and how does that? How do you compare with your peers? So yeah.
So
I'll repeat myself.
Knowing where they're at, really, isn't it, in
Yeah.
the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
And Vic, you're quite passionate about sharing data with communities as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we secured some Welsh Government funding to do some R&D. What came out of that, obviously anyone who's run a tech startup here will know the user-led design is absolutely critical. And what we did, we took a group of users from consumers through to businesses, through to what we call town stakeholders. So within the towns that Paul is talking about, people like David would be a typical city stakeholder. There's a level within public sector and sometimes in the private sector that they look after the businesses within a town as well. And there's also public sector bodies like your local authorities that are responsible for towns. We took a whole army of people on a user-led design basis. We did some R&D, and there were 3 things that came out of that research. One of them is what these guys have been talking about, is the data that needs to get into the hands of the decision makers. And I think Paul alluded to that. There's no point in sort of reporting retrospectively on footfall data to a group of public sector bodies to just put a tick in the box and say, yeah, you know, comparable town on town, this town did well, this town didn't. We need to be able to get that data into the hands of businesses, but often a dashboard isn't an attractive sort of piece of tech for businesses to go in and regularly look at. We've tried to look at all of the different reasons that businesses would go into a piece of technology. So there's 3 things that attract them. One is a marketing tool. So that's our Visitor Smart Towns app. That's the front-facing consumer tool, which is an app for all the towns that we work with. But by harnessing the power of all of those businesses in one place and having our network, we're able to deliver some additional advantages to the other users that I just spoke about. So communication channels. Communication channels are absolutely, they're a huge challenge to public sector and to those helping in towns at the moment. To give you some idea, if someone wanted to run a food festival or a Christmas parade or a series of events over a period of time, there needs to be someone who knocks door to door with each individual business, or that they will all feel, or the ones that don't have that communication will feel left out. So we've built some really strong communication channels within the platform. So not only do they get to market to their customers, but they get to communicate with those organisations that support them, and then also data. So marketing, communication, and data is within that platform. Whereas, and I think we were chatting about this the other day, you've kind of got a whole ecosystem of support here in front of you in Wales. You've got David, who's at the coalface working with businesses within the towns, within public sector. You've got Paul out working with sensors and collating our data. You've got Owen here, who is looking at, and I won't sort of steal your thunder here, looking at place consultancy and with a digital element of that. And then with a private business then coming in, trying to sort of wrap that up and benefit from that ecosystem, and work with that ecosystem to build something that businesses on the ground actually want to use, so that dashboards can be fed into that we can actually, whilst they're updating their marketing, that they're also able to view what the footfall data looks like. And I'm conscious of the question was about data. So as part of that R&D project, there were 3 elements that the businesses asked for that came top. We asked them about everything. When we mentioned about air quality sensors, our public sector partners kind of said, that might be something we don't want to share with businesses, which is quite interesting, because if they're having challenges around air quality, that might be something they want to manage themselves until they've made that improvement, and then they share the data. Whereas something like footfall to celebrate a particular event, and to allow them to plan. The businesses on the ground are the ones that are writing the rotas, they're getting the staff in, they're ordering stock. They need to be able to plan. And the 3 things that they said impact their businesses the most, which will be no surprise to anyone, but it's a top 3. One is weather, which we looked at previously. We know that footfall and the trend in footfall, the weekly trend and the seasonal trend impacts it as well. So being able to predict that. But finally, sporting events. We all kind of like, everyone's nodding here now. You might get one business that gets a huge spike in footfall because they're showing a sporting event, and maybe a soft play area that goes really, really quiet because mum and dad are watching the rugby. So in essence, that's how data feeds into the software that we've done.
Amazing, thank you. And your motto, no town left behind, I just want to quickly, in a sentence, what can towns do to make sure that they don't get left behind?
Work within one ecosystem, naturally, I'm going to say that, but there is a reason behind that. When we first started working with towns in 2018, we were aware of several projects that were all reinventing the wheel. What that means is each one of those, either public sector bodies or town managers, were finding a developer to go away and develop their own solution. They are then responsible to market that solution in situ, in that town, letting people visiting that town and residents all know that that particular tech solution is available to them all. And that's one of the biggest challenges, is user engagement and ensuring that there's usage of the platform. When everyone is part of the same platform, we're all familiar with social media and Facebook and the likes of that. It's social media. What we've tried to develop is something that is town tech, town media, that allows them to collaborate within one platform. So by the pure nature of what we've built as an ecosystem, it self-markets from town to town. So the user from one town will then have the same app on their phone, and it becomes the app for the other town when they visit it then. So shared best practice, shared value, so they're not reinventing the wheel, and shared resources, so that they're not, if one town decides that they want a loyalty scheme, we work with a cluster of towns then to ensure that we've got best practice. We use information based on, experiences that they've had, and we build it for all of the towns in our platform. So it's a one size fits all, and we've got the best usage there. There have been so many pieces of technology that have launched within a town, and within 18 months to 2 years, it's either not been marketed effectively or has become stale.
Yeah, exactly. So planning then is essential to that process of planning what you're going to do. So Owen, can you tell us a little bit about that to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you, Kiki. Technology is really baffling, isn't it? And if you'd said to me 3 years ago you were going to be at a Tech Week event, I would have fallen off my chair, just like I think I might do here, being sat on the edge. We've been on a journey in the last 3 years as a kind of a traditional placemaking consultancy, because we recognise that towns in particular, but places, really need to understand how data and technology is working now, but will in the future. And Vicky's got a great line, hasn't she? No town should be left behind, which we do use now and then. I'm not sure if we got it copyrighted, but I think it's the right thing about future-proofing our towns. So we're unashamedly plan makers. We're a strong believer that places and will function better, will be more successful, and stakeholders will have a greater idea about what the future holds if they have a plan. Now, we traditionally make town centre plans or regional plans, working with a range of stakeholders, and they find technology baffling. But what we've found is that by having we've gone through the process of understanding more about smart towns, about technology, learning from the panel here today about what the potential is. But we kind of demystify that by talking to stakeholders in towns about what their problems are, what's the things that they're trying to solve, what are the things that concern them, and what are the opportunities they're really trying to realise. And then what we say is, does technology play a part in that? We don't start a conversation with technology because they won't turn up. To be quite truthful, they won't turn up. But you have to kind of say, well, we think actually we can solve this, but technology will play a part. And in a way, you don't need to worry about technology. I mean, does anyone? I didn't know what a LoRaWAN network was 3 years ago. I don't know how many people in the room would stick their hand up and say truthfully they know what it is either. But I kind of know what it does. I know why it's important, and I know what difference it will make. And Dave has already given some really great examples from Wrexham of that. What's really interesting in terms of being the bookend of this conversation is that before Dave was appointed, the journey started in Wrexham because we were at the time doing a city centre master plan, but we were already learning about smart tech, and we did a digital place plan that was sat alongside that said, in Wrexham, these are the opportunities that technology can unleash. These are the ways that you can better manage your city environment. And here's a blueprint for doing it. What was great is that Wrexham, and I think now they are probably one of the leading authorities in Wales, then found a resource to drive that forward, which we have here in Dave. And in a year, we've seen an enormous progress made in terms of piloting work and seeing the benefit of that. What's great for us as consultants is that we can point to places like Wrexham and say, look, they're starting at the same point you are now, a year ago, and look how far they've gone and what difference it has made. And I think in all of the towns that we work in, it's kind of just finding that one thing that communities understand, that stakeholders understand, and say that actually let's start playing around with this technology and seeing what can happen, because it's only once they've tried it and they feel less fearful about it that they will actually then adopt it. And I think the key ingredients that Vicky's already mentioned is all here. We've got data capture and analytics in a way that people can understand and interpret, which is really important because sharing data is absolutely critical to this. Because if you have all this tech and nobody knows what difference it's making, then they really don't buy into it. So we've got that here. We've got a platform that engages and empowers businesses and stakeholders and local authorities in kind of how they manage their place and how they activate the full potential of the people and the businesses there, which is what Vicky does. Dave's proved that implementation matters because it just builds up better business cases and greater adoption within local authorities, although I understand that that battle hasn't quite been won yet. And I truly believe that only starts with a plan, because people can understand what journey they're going to go on. So I probably spent more than 5 minutes talking, so sorry about that.
I am a bit conscious of time. I just want to ask one little question just to wrap it up, because we've worked together on loads of different towns in Wales now, and I know you work with a load outside of Smart Towns, but is there a common theme that you see in the towns that do succeed, that do carry out the plan?
Apart from having a plan, because you've heard me say that, and I really hate the phrase digital champions because they don't really exist in towns. They're a very rare example. So if you know Cardigan, we had Clive there, the mayor, who if you kind of look at the story about Cardigan and Smart Towns journey, it's definitely worth looking at. he was a true digital champion and he was unique, and I don't think we've got many of those. What you need to do is find only a small number, whether they're business people, local politicians, maybe just somebody from the community who kind of has enough confidence to get it or is willing to learn a little bit more about it, but also sees the full potential, and they can be a real key spark that other people will follow. And that has to come from the community itself. So we've worked with town councils where you've got a particular councillor who goes, I get this. I'm going to really champion this. I'm going to push this forward. Or it might be an individual from a business who kind of says, yeah, I'm playing around with this sort of stuff. I think I can see what we can do here. So I do think you need to find an individual. We as consultants, everybody here, we're not in our towns all of the time, but you need somebody who's there day in, day out, kind of pushing that forward. So I do think that is a bit of a gem. I don't think it's easy to find, but this whole idea that technology is baffling, demystify it, build confidence, find a few people who can kind of see the potential and work with them. I think that's absolutely key to success.
Brilliant, thank you. So anyone wants to be their town's digital champion, you know where to find us. So I think we're going to pass now for some questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Please don't be shy. It's the last chance. So if this technology has worked in Wrexham, is there anything stopping it working literally anywhere? Or are there any obstacles whatsoever? Oh, can we have a mic? Sorry, where's the mic? There we are. Yeah, keep that one. Keep that one. Yeah.
No, not really. LoRaWAN is. I've been researching this for about 12 months. It works off radio wave, so it's like your TV antenna, your old analog TV antenna. A gateway has to be plugged into an internet port, but the sensors are really the line of sight that are good for about 10 kilometers. So, and the battery operated sensor can last for about 10 years. So you can have a sensor quite a distance away from the gateway, which is reporting into an internet port.
Would it be down then to the attitudes of local councils, town councils, borough councils, county councils?
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be.
No.
Yeah.
And I suppose the risk that there is now, councils haven't got much cash to splash about. So, again, to invest in new technology, there comes an element of risk. And I suppose there's not enough use cases out there on scale to prove its worth. You know, from the small pilots that we've done in Wrexham, we can see the use cases. So car parking, accessibility. I mean, there's another local authority up in North Wales. Back in when COVID hit, they were the councillors wanted to know the air quality in schools because children could contract the virus. They weren't showing any symptoms, but then they could pass the virus on. So they used LoRaWAN sensors in some schools. From that, the local authority worked with the schools to say, if you opened your window at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your air quality will improve by 100%. So the CO2 levels go down. Whilst they were doing this, Harvard University published a scientific backed paper explaining how pupils are more assertive with better air quality and they tend to learn better. So from a little sensor in a school classroom can prove that they're actually taking more in.
So it is going to take a bit of time, isn't it, really, to gather the evidence, to gather the case studies, and then hopefully everybody can be persuaded. Is that so?
So yeah, it's exactly that. And I think the work of Mentor Mann as part of the Smart Towns shouldn't be understated either, because there is, I mentioned sort of like the hierarchy of town engagement from Welsh Government all the way down through local authority to town stakeholder. But by aggregating and shining spotlights on all the great stuff that is going on, you're raising the bar then for other towns. You're shining that spotlight so people see the art of the possible. And it brings me back to one conversation I think a few of us were part of, where we were asking leaders within town councils who were ambassadors, who are trying to take their council forward, what it was like for them to try and convince other people within the public sector to go on that journey with them. So whilst you may have a great digital ambassador within a local authority and they're trying to convince the refuse department that they need sensors in their bins so that they can manage the logistics of their bin collections, when that particular department can't actually see it and isn't quite there on that journey, you realise then that the work that is going on across Wales at the moment is at the cusp of that wave. It's leading. I would almost say the work that Mentor Mann is doing, and the panel is further forward than any. I've taken a look around, and it is really on a pedestal there in terms of what we're doing here in Wales. So if we are having those challenges and taking people kicking and screaming on that journey, then that will be happening elsewhere at a different level. And they genuinely are making sure that those people are informed and that they see the benefits of it.
Da iawn, Mentor Mann. Right, there's a question here in the front.
Hiya. I just want to ask, where does it start? So, for example, I'm in Denby. Great what you're doing in Wrexham. Very interested for all the data. That's brilliant. And a friend of mine has said you've stole his idea already, so he has to put that on the back burner. But where does it start? Is it start in the council? Can they get funding from you? Or does it start for just somebody in the community saying, I want this? Where do they get the funding from, the census, or?
You can't get funding without a plan.
You've got your plan, okay? Yeah. So you now are having a conversation with a local authority or potentially with other funding providers. I mean, we have a fairly complicated but quite advantageous funding landscape in Wales. Traditionally, we've always had large funding programmes. So Welsh Government has its Transforming Towns programme, which is very town centre focused. It has in there a funded stream called Smart Towns. So if your project falls in that category, potentially you can get funded through there. We also have a programme in Wales called Shared Prosperity Funding. It's all part of the UK government levelling up agenda. Again, a lot of investment is going into digital and technology in Wales through that programme at the moment. So, for example, Powys County Council is doing a big rollout of infrastructure across its towns. And I think the Patrim project is going to be rolled out fairly soon. That's been funded through shared prosperity funding. Every local authority in Wales has got that. And then we also have our regional level. So we've got growth deals. So in North Wales, we have Ambition North Wales, is it? We've got Cardiff Capital Region here in the south. We've got the growth deal for Mid Wales. They all have digital and technology embedded within those programs. In fact, I think you'd struggle to find a funded regeneration or economic program in Wales that doesn't have technology and digital in it. The truth is, do they really know what to do with it? So I think if you've got really great ideas, you really need to be talking to those fund holders, because I think there's a way that here in Wales, at least, we have a fairly good funding landscape. It won't last forever. It'll get reinvented when we have another government, but they always last for 5 years at least, and you'll get a chance to kind of pick it. But, you know, technology will be in there in the future. So there is that. So David's right. Local authorities are under a lot of pressure. And I think it will take time for them to see technology as something that they can fund from the core, because it will give them cost advantages and they'll be able to make some savings. But for the time being, there are all these other programs in place that you could use potentially.
Any further questions? Anybody? Is there evidence of this technology working elsewhere, outside Wales, abroad? Do you know of any?
So as part of my role, I've been to a couple of conferences in Europe, in Barcelona, in Amsterdam, and it's been amazing to see we're actually doing most of this stuff already in Wales. We don't shout about it as much, which is why it's amazing being here at Wales Tech Week and actually being able to talk about it. But I've been to talks where they've been showing off, you know, IoT for measuring like slurry pits and things. Well, my colleague Rian was doing that back in 2017, was it? You know, so we are at the forefront of it in Wales, and I think we do need to shout about it a bit more.
Yeah, welcome to Wales. We don't shout there enough. Right. Any more questions before we finish? No? Good. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Round of applause, please, for our panel. Diolch, Kiki.